Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jackie and today I am here to do my February wrap up. So in the month of February I had another fantastic reading month. I read a total of 12 books, which brings my update on my Goodreads reading challenge up to 24 out of the 25 books I had set for myself this year. So that's absolutely fantastic. I didn't see myself, honestly, at the beginning of the year reading this much books in the first 2 months of the year. Usually I don't read this many books until the summer. So fantastic start to the year, and hopefully this trend will continue into the later months of the year. So without further ado, I'm actually going to jump right in and get started. So I have a few statistics for you guys because I figured why not incorporate these into the videos. The good majority of the books I read this month were either ebooks, review books, or library books. So that's pretty cool. Actually, only 2 of the 12 books I read this month were books I already had owned, and both of those were review books. So that's just a fun little statistic I wanted to throw out there. So I'm going to start off with the first book I read, which was Test of the Road by Rachel Hartman. This is a YA, maybe borderline new adult fantasy novel that's actually a spin-off to her Serafina duology, which I didn't know going in. This was an arc I got from NetGalley. This came out on February 27th. And again, I didn't know much about it going in because I had never read the Serafina duology, so I got spoiled for a lot of the things that happened in that duology. But after reading this book, I'm actually kind of interested to go check out that series. This, like I said, is a YA fantasy series that follows our main character Tess, who is the half-sister of Serafina, the main character in the Serafina duology, and it follows kind of her side of the story. Like I said, I know I've said this 3 times already, I've never read Serafina duology, but I got a lot out of this book and I give it 4 stars, and I am interested to see what happened in the original duology. The next book I read this month was The Summer Jordi Perez by Amy Spalding. This is another arc I got from the publisher. This comes out on April 3rd. This is a YA contemporary novel that follows our main character Abby, who is a fashion blogger. So I could relate a lot to that. Obviously, I'm a blogger myself. And she is a lesbian, and she gets this internship at her favorite boutique. And there she meets a girl named Jordi, and they form a relationship. And Jordi is also vying for the position of this permanent job because they're both interns. I really like this book. This is actually the very first time I've ever read a lesbian romance, and I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I could really connect to the main character Abby, as she is a blogger, I am a blogger. So overall, really cute, kind of insta-lovey, but I really enjoyed it and I gave that 4 stars. The next book I read was Otherworld by Jason Segel. This is a book I had seen going around BookTube a little bit back in December and early January. I originally saw it over at Jesse the Reader's channel, as that was his book club book of the month for the month of December. That was Booksplosion's book of the month, I believe. And they all really seemed to enjoy it. And then I saw the biannual Bibliothon people do that as their readathon pick, so I'm like, I'll just pick this up and see what I think. I really enjoyed this book. This is a YA science fiction novel that follows our main character. His name is, oh my gosh, what is his name? I cannot remember. Simon. Our main character Simon, and he lives in a world where this video game called Otherworld has pretty much taken the world by storm. It has everybody playing it, and Simon has this friend who he is in love with, who gets into this horrible accident, and she is put into a coma, and the only way Simon is able to communicate with her is through the game. So it follows his adventures there. This kind of gave me a mix of Warcross and Ready Player One vibes. Both of those books I have not read, but I know the basic premise because they do both have to do with video games. I don't know too much about video games myself, so I learned about a lot of stuff about video games I hadn't known in the past, and I ended up giving this 4 stars as well. The next one I read was City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare. This is the 6th and final book in the Immortal Instruments series, and I am so glad to be done with this series. You guys know my thoughts. This last book was actually pretty good. It definitely made up for the problems I had with City of Lost Souls. It was a pretty decent book. I did have a couple of problems with it. It didn't feel original. I still don't like the characters. I still don't like the romance. But at the same time, I found the plot very enjoyable. But I don't know. I don't think this series was for me, but I do plan on continuing on with the Shadowhunter world, and I ended up giving this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read in the month of February was Mr. Mercedes by Stephen King. This is book 1 in the Bill Hodges trilogy. This is an adult psychological thriller series that follows our main character Bill, who in this first book is a retired police officer, and 6 months previously, before he had retired, there was this horrible crash in which a man drove his Mercedes into a bunch of people, killing 8 of them and wounding, I believe, 15 more. And 6 months later, after Bill has retired, he is getting blackmailed by the killer himself. So he is trying to figure out who the killer really is before he strikes again. This is my very first Stephen King book, and I was so impressed. I really, really liked this book. It blew me away. Psychological thrillers aren't something I typically reach for, like I said in many videos before, but this book makes me want to read even more psychological thrillers in the next couple of months, and I do plan, you guys will see in my March TBR, that I am doing a whole month of reading thrillers in March, so that's partly the reason why this book is, that's why I read this book, is I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to read more. So I ended up giving that a 4 out of 5 stars as well. The next one I read was Carmen Run by J.G. Flansby. This is another review book I got from the author. It was actually an ARC. It came out last August. This is an adult science fiction dystopian thriller that follows our main character, or we have 2 main characters. Their names are Bill and Anne. They're a father-daughter duo. And in this world that they live in, all of the natural gases kind of thing have been banned. And at the beginning of this book, and this isn't really a spoiler because it is in the synopsis, Bill starts a fire and he is arrested for it because it killed the last known population of these endangered birds. So Bill's arrested for that, and he escapes to Russia, and it follows him as he is, you know, living on the run, as well as Anne as she is trying to find him. I like this book. I love dystopian, you guys know that. That's my favorite genre. But this one didn't feel too original. I ended up giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars. It could have been better, but it was still enjoyable. The next one I read was the chapter by chapter book club book of the month for the month of February, and that was The Bells by Danielle Clayton. This, like I said, was our book club book of the month. If you guys aren't familiar with chapter by chapter is the book club I run over on Goodreads. The link is always down below for you guys. And this is a YA fantasy novel that came out on February 6th. It follows our main character Camilla, who is a belle. She lives in a world that's pretty much a fantasy version of the city of New Orleans, Louisiana. And in this world, there are these people called the Bells who control beauty. Everybody else is born morally gray, and the Bells are the only ones who can provide beauty to those people. And Camilla wants to be the top Belle, so she and some of her sisters go to work at the palace, and only one of them can be the favorites of the top Belle. And it follows Camilla as once she arrives at this palace, everything is not as it seems. I really like this book. I do have a full non-spoiler review. I will link it on the screen for you guys to go check out if you want to hear more of my in-depth thoughts. I really enjoyed it. The pacing was a little bit slow for me, and I had problems with fat shaming, but other than that, I think it was a great book, and I gave it 4 stars. The next one I ended up reading was, oh my gosh, Nixon Unleashed by Scott Rentigan. This is the second book in the Nixia trilogy. The first book was Nixia. I read that back in September. I really enjoyed it, so I continued on with this trilogy. This second book comes out on July 17th, so quite a ways away from here. And this is a YA science fiction series that follows our main character Emmett, who has been sent on this mission to a planet called Eden to mine this mineral known as Nixia. And if he does this, he pretty much wins a lot of money. The first book followed Emmett as he is going through some rigorous training to be able to go down to Eden, because only 10 out of the 18 kids that were sent are able to go down. And obviously the second book follows the events of the first one. I think I like the first book a little bit better than this book. The second book didn't follow the events right after the first book. It takes place a few months later, but still had the qualities of the first book that I really liked, so I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next one I read was another review book, and that is Focusing Emptiness by Michael P. Staples. This was actually the very first review book I ever got when I started my channel almost 2 years ago. And this is a non-fiction memoir book that follows Michael P. Staples' life. It talks a lot about the military and animals and karate. It was really interesting. I had a couple of problems with things that I couldn't connect with, but for the most part I was able to connect with the story that Michael was trying to tell us, so I ended up giving this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next one I read was Gilded Cage by Vic James, which is another arc I got from NetGalley. This came out on February 14th of last year, so a little over a year ago. And this is another YA, kind of borderline new adult dystopian that follows a few characters, 3 different characters, a brother and sister, and one of the princes who live in this world. And in this world, the magic users are pretty much the rulers of this entire kingdom, and the other people who don't have these magical abilities are slaves. And it follows the brother and sister who have been enslaved under the prince, who is the other character we follow, as they try to escape this kingdom and, as in typical dystopian fashion, overthrow the government. So I, again, liked this book. It was kind of just average for me. I ended up giving it 3 stars, but I can definitely see where the rest of the series is going to go. So maybe I'll pick up the future books, but I'm not quite sure yet. So like I said, I gave that a 3 out of 5 stars. The next one I read was Bloodbound by Emily Howard. I got this years ago. I cannot remember if it was a review book or not. I'm so sorry. This is a new adult fantasy novel that takes place in Vienna, Austria, and it follows a character. I'm actually just going to read the synopsis. It's really hard to explain, or because it's kind of loosely based my synopsis. So it says, eternal life comes at a cost, love or freedom, the choice is hers. Vienna, Austria, 1892, Lady Leander von Kurzberg, I probably butchered that, I'm so sorry, is a Hellion. Raised with 7 older brothers, there is only one thing Lena fears: marriage. She has no desire to give up her freedom to be any lord's broadmare. When Lena meets the dangerously attractive Dever twins, again, I'm probably butchering all these names and I'm so sorry, she is smitten, inexplicably drawn to both men. The brothers are polar opposites as much as Christian is every inch the debonair Duke of Devonry. Oh my gosh, like I said, I'm so sorry. His brother Lucien is a roguish scoundrel bent on Hinduism, but the captivating twins aren't what they seem. As frightening truths are unveiled and a one-of-a-kind offer is made, Lena will have to decide whether love is worth the loss of her freedom, or if freedom is worth the ultimate cost, her life. So this is actually a novella, so it's very short, and I think that's where most of my problems came into play, is the length of the novel. The romance has felt very insta-lovey, and there's also a love triangle. And I feel like it could have been more drawn out, but again, it was a novella, so I shouldn't have been surprised with all my problems, but I did enjoy some elements, so I gave that a 3 out of 5 stars. And the last book I managed to read in the month of February was Retrograde by Peter Crowden. This was another review book as well as my TBR jar pick for this month, and this is an adult science fiction book that takes place on Mars. And if you guys like The Martian by Andy Weir, I think you would really like this book. It's got very similar elements to it. This follows 3 main characters who are on a mission to Mars when a nuclear bomb is dropped on the city of Chicago, Illinois, and it follows them as they are trying to make their way back to Earth in order to save the ones they love. I like this book. I think all the characters were interesting. There was a great amount of diversity. We had Chinese characters, we had a Chinese love interest, there was gay characters, plenty of representation. Actually, the character we follow the perspective of is the female lead. It was very interesting. However, I did have problems with the pacing, and I think it could have been a little longer because it is pretty short. It's less than 300 pages, but I enjoyed it for the most part, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And that is all I'm going to have for this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to give a big thumbs up and subscribe if you have not already. I post new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. All the links to these books will be linked down below for you guys if you guys are interested in checking them out, along with all my social media links. And with all that being said, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you soon for another video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye!